Hello everyone. Today we will study multiculturalism, an important political ideology in contemporary political theory. Multiculturalism deals with the problem of cultural diversity in modern societies. It asks, how should a state treat different cultural, religious, ethnic, linguistic, caste, tribal, gender, or minority identities living within the same political community? The term multiculturalism was first used in Canada in 1965 to describe a new approach to cultural diversity, and Canada formally adopted it as public policy in 1971. It is closely linked with identity politics, politics of difference, and politics of recognition. 2. Meaning of multiculturalism. Multiculturalism means that society should not force all groups to merge into one dominant culture. Instead, different cultural communities should be recognized, respected, and protected. In simple words, multiculturalism, Okin, unity with diversity. It rejects the idea that a nation must have only one culture, one language, one identity, and one way of life. Instead, it argues that different communities may have different values, and the state should recognize these differences in its laws, policies, and institutions. 3. Why multiculturalism emerged. Multiculturalism emerged mainly as a challenge to liberal individualism. Classical liberalism treats the individual as the basic unit of society. It says that all individuals should have equal rights. But multicultural thinkers argue that this is incomplete because human beings do not live as isolated individuals. They live within communities, cultures, languages, religions, and traditions. For example, a tribal community, a linguistic minority, or a religious minority may need more than formal equality. They may need special protection so that their culture can survive. That is why multiculturalism argues that equal treatment does not always mean identical treatment. 4. Core arguments of multiculturalism. First, multiculturalism criticizes the nation-state model because the idea of one nation, one culture, one identity often leads to the dominance of the majority culture. Second, it argues that liberal democracies may fail to protect the cultural distinctiveness of immigrants, indigenous groups, religious minorities, and other marginalized communities. Third, multiculturalism says that rights, liberty, justice, and equality should not always be understood in a universal and abstract way. Different cultures may understand justice and rights differently. Fourth, it demands that public policy must respect cultural differences and recognize minority identities. 5. Key components of multiculturalism: A. Identity, politics, and politics of difference. Multiculturalism supports the idea that cultural identities such as religion, ethnicity, language, gender, caste, and race are politically important. It argues that people should not be treated only as abstract citizens. They should also be recognized as members of particular cultural communities. This is called politics of difference. B. Politics of recognition. The concept of politics of recognition is mainly associated with Charles Taylor. He argues that identity is not formed in isolation. We define ourselves through dialogue with others. Therefore, when society misrecognizes or ignores a community, it damages that community's identity and dignity. C. Encumbered self versus unencumbered self. Liberalism often imagines the individual as an unencumbered self, meaning an abstract individual free from social and cultural attachments. Multiculturalism, influenced by communitarian thinkers like Michael Sandel and Alasdair MacIntyre, supports the idea of the encumbered self. This means that individuals are shaped by their community, culture, history, and moral traditions. D. Differentiated citizenship. This is one of the most important concepts in multiculturalism. Differentiated citizenship means that different cultural groups may require different rights. According to Kymlicka, multicultural citizenship may include 3 kinds of special rights. 1. Polyethnic or cultural rights. 2. Self-government rights. 3. Special representation rights. These rights are meant to protect minority cultures and enable them to participate meaningfully in public life. E. Salad bowl, cultural mosaic. Multiculturalism is often explained through the idea of a salad bowl or cultural mosaic. In the melting pot model, different cultures are expected to dissolve into one common culture. In the salad bowl model, different cultures remain distinct but coexist within one society. So, for UGC NET, remember melting pot, assimilation, salad bowl, cultural mosaic, multiculturalism. 6 important thinkers of multiculturalism will Kymlicka. Will Kymlicka is associated with group differentiated rights, polyethnic rights, and multicultural citizenship. He argues that culture provides the context of choice through which individuals understand their lives. His major works include Liberalism, Community and Culture, Multicultural Citizenship, Politics in the Vernacular, and Multicultural Odysseys. Charles Taylor. Charles Taylor is known for the politics of recognition. He argues that recognition is essential for human dignity and identity. His important works include Sources of the Self and Multiculturalism and the Politics of Recognition. Bhikkhu Parekh. Bhikkhu Parekh rejects universalist liberalism and supports cultural pluralism. He argues that reason, morality, and social life are shaped by culture. His major work is Rethinking Multiculturalism, Cultural Diversity, and Political Theory. Tariq Modood. Tariq Modood is associated with multiculturalism in Britain, especially debates around Muslims, secularism, and civic multiculturalism. He is linked with the idea of radical secularism. Stuart Hall. Stuart Hall is associated with cultural identity and is often called the godfather of multiculturalism. Isaiah Berlin. Isaiah Berlin is important for the idea of value pluralism. He argued that different cultures may hold different values, and these values may sometimes conflict with one another. James Tully. James Tully, in Strange Multiplicity, criticized modern constitutionalism for ignoring cultural diversity and self-government claims of indigenous communities. 7. Criticism of multiculturalism. Multiculturalism has also been criticized by several thinkers. Amy Gutmann argues that multicultural rights may create difficulties for achieving social justice because different communities may have different ethical standards. Martha Nussbaum and Susan Moller-Okin criticize multiculturalism from a feminist perspective. They argue that group rights may protect patriarchal and oppressive practices inside cultural communities. Brian Barry argues that special accommodation based on culture is not a proper basis for welfare policy. He believes justice should focus on equal opportunities rather than cultural privileges. Robert Putnam argues that excessive cultural diversity may reduce social trust and weaken democratic mobilization. 8. Multiculturalism in one example. Imagine a country where one dominant language is used in schools, courts, and public offices. A small linguistic minority lives in that country. If the state says everyone has the same right to education, this is formal equality. But if education is only available in the majority language, the minority community may slowly lose its language. Multiculturalism would argue that the state should provide special protection, such as minority language schools, cultural institutions, or representation rights. So multiculturalism is not against equality. It says that real equality sometimes requires recognition of difference. 9. Exam-oriented summary. For UGC NET, remember these points. Multiculturalism is linked with identity politics, politics of difference, cultural diversity, recognition, group rights, and differentiated citizenship. Canada formally adopted multiculturalism in 1971. Charles Taylor is associated with politics of recognition. Will Kymlicka is associated with group differentiated rights, polyethnic rights, and multicultural citizenship. Stuart Hall is called the godfather of multiculturalism. Isaiah Berlin is linked with value pluralism. James Tully wrote Strange Multiplicity. Bhikkhu Parekh wrote Rethinking Multiculturalism. Salad bowl, cultural mosaic represents multiculturalism, while melting pot represents assimilation. Unencumbered self is associated with liberal individualism, while encumbered self is associated with communitarian and multicultural thinking. To conclude, multiculturalism is a theory that tries to balance unity and diversity. It challenges the liberal idea that equal rights alone are enough. It says that cultural communities need recognition, respect, and sometimes special rights. But it also faces criticism because cultural autonomy may sometimes protect unjust practices within communities. So the central question of multiculturalism is, how can a democratic state protect cultural diversity without compromising justice, equality, and individual freedom?